Welcome in to the Fantasy Football Playmakers podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Popolars, who you can find on Twitter at PopesFFH, joined as always by my co-host, Ryan Mackey, who you can find on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. Ryan, hopefully your fantasy weekend went a little better than mine. I think this is just going to be a constant intro to the show, just how bad my fantasy teams are this year.
My week actually went pretty solid. I was at 500 at the beginning of the week, and I finished this week 8 games above 500. So I won a lot more than I had been the first 2 weeks. Anyways, like I said, finished around 500 through week 2, and then I got to 8 wins above 500. So I wasn't bad this week.
Oh yeah, sorry, there's an echo.
What's going on with that? What are you doing?
I didn't know that does that. Don't mind me. Technical difficulties because StreamYard, kind of effed us over.
A little bit. Oh, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Anyways, continue. Buy your really good fantasy teams and keep rubbing it in.
But no, I've had some bad luck though. I do have some teams that I thought were pretty good when I drafted them, and now they're just not performing very well. I had some tough luck in Scott Fish this week. My money leagues I'm doing good in. It's just kind of the extra free leagues that I'm not really doing so hot in, and the Scott Fish Bowl, which is probably most important to me. I'm not doing very hot in, but still 1-2. I still feel like I have a solid team there, so I should be all right. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm 0-3 in Scott Fish. It's not going my way. I could have won this week had I started Dalton Schultz instead of Blake Jarwin, but I always picked the wrong Dallas tight end.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that, man.
I mean, at least I have both, but I just can't pick the right one, it seems like.
It's kind of the downfall of having both, though, isn't it? You just never really know which one it's going to be.
Yeah, well, either one beats Adam Troutman at this point. I'm going to take the L on that. He doesn't exist anymore. He's just...
That's so disappointing. So disappointing for Troutman.
I think the whole Saints offense is just disappointing, It's just not good.
I mean, at least Kamara scored. I mean, at least he...
Yeah. I mean, but it's Alvin Kamara. You expect that, The rest of them I expected a lot more out of, and just it's not there, sadly. But yeah, I mean, same, 0-3 and Scott Fish. But there's some hope there. I was able to grab Bateman a couple weeks ago, seeing as my team just is bad. So I was like, you know what? I'll just stash him in here. So hopefully if he comes off IR this week, in the next couple weeks, he might be helping. But I don't know. One of my better weeks, though, I was 10-16, almost to 500. Almost there.
You said it's one of your better weeks?
Yeah, that was so far. When you're 26-51, Ryan, 10-16 is good. It doesn't help, though, like I said, and on past shows, if you're a first-time listener, I mean, I rostered a lot of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and so I lost 2 running backs ahead of the season. I also have a lot of Terry McLaurin, who's underperforming. I have a lot of Josh Allen, who was underperforming until this week. I have a lot of Calvin Ridley, who is not doing so hot, and a lot of Javonte Williams, who also is kind of slow to the coals there. But I expected that. It just the rest of the guys I didn't expect, and it's kind of...
Well, it seems like, I don't know if you have them on the same team, but it seems like you might have had Javonte as maybe like an RB3 on your team, and then we're kind of banking on Dobbins and Akers, or at least one of them to get you through until Javonte took over, and then they went down, and now you're kind of forced your hand to play them now.
Yeah, pretty much, especially in Scott Fish. I have a couple where I have the tandem of Gordon and Javonte, which sort of pays off. I mean, they've been getting 10 points a week, but like the upside's capped, and it's just I didn't have nor the desire nor the waiver prowess to really try and grab Tyson Williams, who didn't do well this week, but has been kind of helping for some people who rostered J.K. Dobbins. But And the waiver wire has just been bleak. There's just been so many running back injuries. It's kind of hard to get one that is viable right now, and it's just kind of killing me. So,
yeah, I mean, right now the best running back waiver outside of the obvious is like Peyton Barber, and it's not something that you're really looking to.
Surprisingly, there was an ESPN league that I have. I think I lost still. I did lose still, but I did pick him up before the game because I was in my running back situation, which is terrible. And I was like, I mean, I guess he's the best option on the waiver wire. So I grabbed him, and I did start him in one league.
Really?
Out of pure luck.
Wow.
I still lost somehow.
You going to start him again next week?
I probably, because I don't have anybody else to start. Oh, yeah, because I think I have Dalvin Cook, and he was obviously sort of inactive. And at the moment, I was like, oh, all right, I got to add somebody. So I added him, and it just happened to work. So. Another guy I have 3-4 shares of that's not helping.
I don't know if this makes you feel better or worse, but Jacobs was like a very last second inactive last week, so he's probably going to play this week. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, whatever. At this point, I mean, a lot of my teams are dynasties, so it's kind of like chalk it up to next year. Well, there's always next year. I'll get a low draft pick. JK will come back and tear it up, and I'll have, Isaiah Spiller or Bryce Hall, and, I'll just be loaded. I'm just going to take all running backs next year just because of what happened this year. I'll just, draft a running back every single one. I'll trade for, 3 first-round picks and just take all of them just because. Don't even care at this point. It just seems like everybody – I literally have every single dynasty or redraft – well, not redraft because a lot of them don't have IRs, but, every single dynasty roster I have filled my IR and have multiple players on my bench that have injuries. It's just one of those seasons that I'm just not going to get past it, and it stinks because it makes it really, really hard.
Yeah, it happens though. At least it's not like one of those things where you're just not picking good players. It just happens to be a run of bad luck and just kind of.
That's the way I look at it. That's what makes me feel good. Is I'm like, you know what? Had JK been playing, I'd be killing y'all. He'd be like, he'd just be ripping it up. Look at what Tyson Williams was able to do. He'd be shredded. All right, it's the truth.
Don't bring him up. Mad at him.
It's the truth, though. It really is. It would have been JK season, and I'm sad for it.
It would have been, for sure.
But more sad injuries.
Of course.
I think one that probably wasn't totally relevant just yet, but it was a guy who was kind of making some headway with the Jerry Jeudy injury. KJ Hamler went down with an ACL injury. Do you really see much of anything? I know David Moore, I believe, got activated. I feel like KJ Hamler was kind of like one of those guys you rostered hoping something happened, but I just feel like he he wasn't totally irrelevant, but he's not really totally relevant. I don't know if there's any upside to anybody else you think, Ryan, with this injury, or kind of just a unfortunate thing for him, less so for fantasy.
Yeah, I feel like it's more around that realm than where it's just more unfortunate for him as opposed to having any real drastic impact for fantasy teams. I mean, if anybody gets a bump, it's probably somebody like Noah Fant. I feel like Tim Patrick's kind of set in his role, and Sutton's going to receive the majority of the work there for the most part. So Noah Fant might be the guy that gets a bump, but I just don't see it being anything of a drastic bump by any means.
Yeah, I agree with you there. T. Higgins, do you think we get T. Higgins back this week? He's still questionable with his shoulder injury. I think I saw he was a little limited today at practice.
I think as long as he is at least limited all week and participates.
He's only got 4 days though. They play Thursday night.
That's true.
I'm a little concerned, you know what I mean? I have a couple T. Higgins, another person who obviously added to my injury woes. I'm a little worried. I don't know if we get him this week. I hope so. If we don't, do you see a bump probably for Jamar Chase playing Jacksonville? You know what I mean? Do you see a bump for Jamar Chase or Tyler Boyd again? Do you know, Brian?
Well, that's the thing. We both said that DeAndre Hopkins was a must start last week against Jacksonville, and he didn't do much of anything. I thought Rondale Moore was going to have a good week against Jacksonville.
AJ Green show this week. That's why.
But I mean, AJ Green seemed to fare pretty well somehow. I don't know how he fared well, and those other two guys didn't. But I think Christian Kirk had another decent week.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, they just traded C.J. Henderson. And I know he didn't play. He didn't play last week, but yeah, I mean, that game's probably going to should get out of hand anyways. I mean, Arizona ended up making that game kind of ugly at the end, but yeah, you're kind of right there with them having a 4-day week or a 4-day rest week. They might just sit him with how well Chase is playing. So I could see him being out this week and then bringing him back on 9 or 10 days rest in week 5.
Yeah, unfortunately, I kind of feel like that's going to be the route. I really hope not. It's a really nice matchup for him, especially like you had said, them trading C.J. Henderson. But I think that he's probably going to be an inactive this week. So if you do roster T. Higgins, you might want to kind of start thinking about other options there, whether it's adding somebody off the waiver wire this week or not. I just feel like he might sit this week. It just feels like last week he was completely not involved. And I just like in practice leading up and everything like that. So I feel like they're just going to nurse it. Like you said, Ryan, give him that extra 10 days and kind of just cautiously bring him in, especially with how good Jamar Chase has looked and Tyler Boyd. So it's not like they don't have any other options. And even Auden Tate has shown that he can be like a viable football wide receiver, not necessarily fantasy yet, but
and they're probably looking at it as they probably believe they can beat Jacksonville without him.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they're probably not.
And I could even see a lot of
or Baltimore, a team that they want to beat. I know they want to beat everybody, but like it's not like a rival divisional game or anything like that. It's not for any playoff implications yet or anything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did sit him.
Yeah. Elijah Moore went down with a concussion. Another one that I feel like was a guy we were pretty high on, but just seems like this seems a little less fantasy relevant. It just seems like he hasn't broken in. Zach Wilson's looked really rough the last couple weeks. I think this is more just kind of like all right, just keep it on the radar that he has this concussion. But I feel like it's fantasy relevant. You're not starting Elijah Moore anymore after week 1 where he kind of burned a lot of people. That it just seems like the only Jets wide receiver you want to start is Corey Davis at the moment. Even Braxton Berrios, who had a couple good weeks, kind of dudded last week. So it just seems like until Zach Wilson really figures it out and the Jets figure out a better run game, most Jets players outside of Corey Davis are a hard start.
Even Corey Davis, man, he's not.
He's a revenge game this week, so I might fire him up, but playing the Titans, so
that's fair.
But Dalvin Cook was questionable, late inactive on Sunday. I think he probably starts this week. I feel like last week they kind of let him sit it out because they knew they could possibly beat Seattle, and they know Alexander Mattinson is a capable running back. I think he's going to be back in the lineup this week. So there's not much to that. If not, obviously, probably most of you either already rostered Madison or tried to get him. But I think he's going to be back. I don't think I'm too worried about that. Yeah. A.J. Brown went down with a hamstring injury. He is listed as questionable. However, he was stated week to week. Ryan, are we worried here with A.J. Brown? I think also Julio was questionable. He sat out the fourth quarter plus, I think, in that game. What are we making of this? Like, is this I mean, I have one, I think, A.J. Brown share, and I have some Julio shares also in Scott Fishbowl. So, I mean, do we think Julio plays? I mean, I feel like A.J. Brown being week to week, this is the first week of the injury. He's out Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that designation kind of rules him out already for this coming week. So, outside of, I don't know if anybody is listed in none of our top guys, but is there a Titans wide receiver you want to try and grab and be off the waiver wire? Just like a quick name, like a Chester Rogers or I forgot what his name was.
Josh Reynolds?
No, not Josh Reynolds. There's the other kid who had a big second half. Shoot. I'll look it up. Will you tell me if you want to add anybody?
I don't think so. Everything that I have seen says A.J. Brown is likely going to or he probably is going to miss week 4 against the Jets. Looks like they sat Julio just purely as a precaution to keep him out of that, or to basically protect him from not getting injured any further. He's probably going to play. But to me, this just seems like a huge Derrick Henry game. He might see 30 touches in this one going against the Jets. So I don't think I'm willing to add anybody here, especially if A.J. Brown's just kind of week to week. But it's definitely something worth monitoring, see what they do. You had mentioned Chester Rogers.
It's Nick Westbrook.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Here's one with the bigger game.
He scored 2 touchdowns?
1.
No, what? Could have sworn I heard somebody say that he had 2. But, yeah, that's who it is. But I don't think I'm willing to go and add him or any of these other wide receivers, to be honest with you. I feel like they'll just lean on Henry often. And Jeremy McNichols might get a little bit more run if A.J. Brown is out, but we'll just have to wait and see there. But, yeah, like I said, it looks like Brown's going to be out for week 4, and then Julio was just set as a precaution in the fourth quarter there last week, so he's probably going to play.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with that assessment. I mean, I would maybe add Chester Rogers. I mean, it's tough because you're adding these guys, and I don't know if they're startable to me. You know what I mean? Depending on how deep your rosters are or whatnot. I feel like I'm just out on Titans wide receivers just because I feel like it's going to be a big guessing game. You know, it's going to be almost like the New England Patriots wide receiver situation where you're kind of just like, one of these guys is going to go off, but who's it going to be this week? So I feel like Julio might get peppered if he plays. So, I mean, if you do roster Julio, he could be in for a big week.
Yeah.
How about the Giants, another team that saw 2 wide receivers go down? We had Darius Slayton went down and Sterling Shepard. Is there any stock in Colin Johnson, you think? They're both listed as questionable right now. I mean, I don't really know where they're going to be come Sunday, but I mean, outside of Dynasty, are you probably just avoiding Colin Johnson? And I know he's kind of in some of the waiver wire articles out there as kind of a low budget kind of guy to try and grab, but
yeah, I mean, he's going to be involved in any of the waiver articles and things like that, just because he's an option that, I mean, if they're down 3 receivers, if Galladay doesn't go, if Shepard can't go, if Slayton can't go, he's obviously going to be technically the next man up because I'm pretty sure he led the team in targets and receptions Sunday, right? So
yeah, I don't know if he led the team. I know he had, I think, 5.
He had 5 for 56, something like that. They didn't throw the ball very well, but so of course he's going to be on there. I mean, Braxton Berrios has been on there, and he's not exactly like the hottest name in the world. So I'm not really putting too much stock in him for redraft, but in Dynasty, I've always kind of liked him, so I've always kind of stashed him where I could. But in terms of redraft or anything like that, I don't think I'm trying to go after him or anybody else in that offense.
All right, another not, I don't know exactly how it's listed, but Juju had a rib injury. Any stock there? Do you think we get Deontay back this week? Or do you think this is going to be like a Chase Claypool, possibly James Washington game coming up?
From what I've seen, it looks like Juju is going to practice tomorrow, and they're going to just kind of take him day by day with his rib injury. As for Deontay, I haven't seen anything saying whether he's looking like he's going to play. I do know that they're going to try to get him to practice tomorrow. So that's going to be a big indicator of where he's at. I feel like if he is a DNP tomorrow, then he's probably not going to play. But if he at least gets a limited session in, then I feel like he's trending in the right direction. So I'm pretty sure he missed Thursday's practice last week before the game when they declared him inactive. So as long as he gets a limited session in, I feel pretty good about him at least trending in the right direction to play. It doesn't necessarily mean he will play, but tomorrow is going to be the day that you really see what's going to happen or get an idea of what's going to happen. I do like James Washington. I just don't know if I like Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the ball. So I feel like it'd probably be a Claypool show, probably another big Najee Harris game like we had that on Sunday. So that's kind of where I'm at. I like James Washington as a talent. I'm not a fan of Ben Roethlisberger anymore. I just can't really put any stock in any secondary wide receivers in that offense. So I would personally stay away, but if you're in deeper leagues, then obviously that's something that you might have to look into, especially if both Juju and Deontay are out.
Fair. James White, a pretty nasty hip injury. Looks like he's going to be out for a long period of time. What's this do to that Patriots backfield for you, Ryan? Damian Harris didn't get a lot of work. We saw Brandon Bolden get some work. And then question is, I guess, is it Brandon Bolden? Is it going to be Damian Harris, J.J. Taylor? Does Ramondre Stevenson get a call? Where are you headed here with this? Because majority of these guys, those J.J. Taylor, Stevenson might be, and Bolden are probably on people's waiver wires. Like, who are you targeting if you're targeting any of those three?
Ugh. Honestly, I don't like any of them, especially going against Tampa this week, and that they're going to be fired up after losing to the Rams this past weekend. So I'm not going after anybody for this week, but if you have room to stash somebody to replace James White, like if you have James White and you can place him on IR, it'd probably be J.J. Taylor for me, just because I feel like he matches that skill set a little bit more than those other guys do. And he looked really good in the preseason as well. We haven't really seen him a whole lot in the regular season, if at all.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites last year, like a favorite stash. I liked what J.J. Taylor brought, and you saw it in the preseason last year too, and we just never got to see it during the year. So I like the opportunity if he gets it. The question just comes, is Brandon Bolden more involved? He saw a lot of run too. So,
well, he's always been like more of a special teams guy. It might have been a scenario where they just didn't really have a game plan for James White to go down because he's been relatively durable throughout his career. So this week will be a pretty good indicator of what they want to do, because with that Bucs front seven, they're not going to be able to run the ball up the middle nearly as effectively as they normally could or have been throughout the year so far. So J.J. Taylor could see a lot of run to try to negate that pass rush for Tampa.
Yeah, I see them throwing a lot.
I'm just not 100% sure yet. So I would have like a cautionary ad for J.J. Taylor and just see what kind of happens this week. I wouldn't be starting him or anything like that, but I would have him at least stashed on my bench if I have James White.
Yeah, I like it. I definitely going after J.J. Taylor over any of those other guys. So I feel like Damian Harris is their running guy.
Yeah.
Where Ramondre Stevenson kind of fills that same role. So I feel like it's going to be more for J.J. Taylor's upside here with this James White injury. All right, Ryan, on to happier times. Your best fantasy performances week 3. Who did you like this week?
Well, I mean, it's got to be your guy Mike Williams, right?
Man, I had an offer at the beginning of the year. I play a lot of fantasy football with this one kid that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And we've always had this joke because we always tended to trade Mike Williams between each other. And this year we joined I don't know if he acquired him or I joined a league that he already had him in. And he's like, "Are you going to give me a second for Mike Williams and get this over with?" And I was like, "Nah, dude, we've been through this." And then here we are.
Yeah.
Boy, do I regret that.
I mean, I think it's finally official for him. I think he's officially here. You're going to start him. I don't think there's any more questions that need to be asked on any sit questions or anything like that. I feel like you're just starting him. He was the wide receiver 1 this past weekend and had the second most PPR points overall to just a guy named Josh Allen, who played all right on Sunday. He was decent, I guess. He was kind of whatever.
Linebacker?
Yeah, linebacker. But yeah, Williams was fantastic again. Obviously, like I said, wide receiver 1 in PPR, and second most points overall in PPR. Caught 7 of 9 targets, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now scored 22 plus PPR points all 3 games this season, and tied with Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore for 6 most targets in the league. I mean, there's not really much to say bad about him. There's not. You just can't You can't do it. He's only playing 75% of the snaps.
He was the fantasy football miss of the year. I'm going to say it already. I know it's only 3 weeks in, but
3 weeks. Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of people were over Mike Williams, and boy, it's weird. It feels like just a coaching staff that's ready to pepper him with targets all over the field more than a deep threat kind of type receiver, and it's paying off for him. And yeah, it definitely felt weird. I did my rankings for Sports Gambling Podcast Network this week, and the consensus had him way down there, and I bumped him up, and it was like Devontae Adams, Mike Williams, and I'm like, wait, what? Typo, but not really.
He was wide receiver. He was wide receiver 47 in ADP.
Yeah, I mean, 2 guys that kind of got outcast in the offseason, Mike Williams and Cooper Kupp just keep killing it first 3 weeks. So 3 guys that probably unobtainable at the moment. So
oh yeah, for sure. I will say though, if you can, try to buy Keenan Allen low, because he leads the league in red zone targets with 8. Williams has only got 5, but he's turned 5 of those targets into 4 touchdowns. That is completely unsustainable. There's no way he's going to catch 80% of his targets for touchdowns in the red zone. So
he's got Herbie throwing to him. He will.
No, even with Herbie throwing to him, he's not gonna do that. So
he'll prove you wrong. We all thought he was going to be.
I mean, he's going to score like 20 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, well, I think it's Mike Williams, baby.
That'd be insane.
Well, he was a 7th overall pick, right?
Yeah.
Just saying. All right, who else you have? You had a guy that I doubt a lot, still doubt, but had a very good week. I'll give him that.
You think people chill out on him a little bit?
I think. I mean, you haven't heard about him on Twitter after the Bills shut him down, and then he didn't have that great of a week against, was it the Dolphins, right? I think they played.
Yeah.
Who'd they play? Or the Raiders. They played in the second week.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
But Cincinnati came around.
Najee Harris. And I know he wasn't very effective on the ground. Only averaged 2.9 yards per carry on Sunday. But saw 33 opportunities when it was all said and done, and caught 14 of 19 targets for 102 yards, but did not score a touchdown. Still finishes RB1 for the week. 8th overall, and is sneakily the RB6 overall in PPR right now. Leads all running backs in snap share at 96% of snaps. Jeremy, any guess on who's second and what their snap share is? There's 2. 2 tie with the same amount of snaps.
I don't know. Eckler.
Alvin Kamara and Darrell Henderson have played 80% of their team's running back snaps when they're active. So obviously he's going to stay involved in this offense, especially if Deontay and Juju get miss any sort of time. He's going to be heavily involved in this offense. Like I said, Johnson's supposed to practice tomorrow. Juju may practice, but they might not be 100% if they do play on Sunday afternoon. But even if they do, Ben Roethlisberger looks just gone. He looks shot. I feel like that's.
They should move to Haskins.
I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt at this point. I mean, he's such a legend in that city and for that team that they probably won't do that to him. I feel like that's just so disrespectful to him. But at some point, you do have to put your team first, and if you have those Super Bowl aspirations that they always have, then you kind of have to try at least something new. He might even say, you know what, you should just bench me. He might just come out and say, Dwayne Haskins, this is your team. I feel like that was more likely to happen before they just straight out bench him. I feel like Thomas just got too much love for him to do that. But
I mean, think about it. They have the Packers, then they have the Broncos, then they have the Seahawks, and then they have – sorry, I'm looking at an NFL schedule. Then it's their bye week. Do you really see them winning a game in there? Because I don't.
Probably not.
That's what I mean. I mean, they could be literally 1-6 going into their bye week.
Yeah, and they're 1 win coming against Buffalo.
and a fluke win that was won by their special teams.
Yeah, I mean it's still ugly to me. I still hate the thought of even that happening. But still,
hey, you got to get kicked in the teeth before you learn.
But regardless, I mean, Najee was really impressive to me. I know, like I said, I know he wasn't very effective, but he's probably going to start seeing a ton of loaded boxes now, with teams knowing that Ben's just not going to test them downfield like he used to. So he might not be a top 10 running back in terms of yards on the ground, but he's going to see a ton of volume. He's going to see a ton of targets. And I was impressed with him. 19 targets. I mean, you gotta enjoy that type of incorporation into the offense.
And I think that's what we knew getting him. You know what I mean? This year in drafts, I think that's why I drove up the board. He really was undoubtedly the main focus as far as rookie running backs coming out, that he was going to have 100% of the snap share. He was going to be a focus in the offense. And I just think that some people, like, for example, me, I didn't think that he would see 19 targets in a game. But as soon as you saw Ben Roethlisberger and his inability to throw any further than like 10 yards down the field, it makes sense why they're getting it out to the playmaker that is Najee Harris. And it works for him. You know what I mean? He gets out in space, and that's where he kind of can get his damage done. That offensive line is dismal, so it's hard to run behind it. So, I mean, yeah, he had a great week. I'll give him that. I think this year he probably will be pretty good in PPR leagues. If you're playing in a standard league, I'm sure he doesn't hit as well. But hard to argue with the RB1 for the week. So I like it. Mine were a little bit deeper. You know, we already discussed a little bit about Peyton Barber, but man, where'd that come from? I mean, he was the Raiders running back 1 this week. I saw some jokes on there about how they paid $11 million for Peyton Barber's backup. I don't get why they negate Kenyon Drake. I feel like he was definitely a viable runner at times, especially in Arizona, so I don't understand what they're doing. But either way, Peyton Barber had 20 PPR points. He went for over 100 yards, scored 1 touchdown, and had 3 receptions for 31 yards. I mean, he was the main guy there. So I anticipate him to be again this week if Josh Jacobs is down. I also anticipate him possibly to be starting to steal some stuff from Josh Jacobs. Obviously, they like him. They came out and said it, and obviously they like him more than Kenyon Drake, enough to allow him to have this many touches in a game that was a close game. It wasn't like it was a blowout. You know what I mean? It went to overtime. So, and in overtime, he was seeing all the touches. So I was impressed, both fantasy and real NFL-wise in the game script. So
do you think he's just bad and that's why they're not using him, or do you think that they're just not using him properly?
I just think it's John Gruden.
But I mean, it's working. They're 3-0. I mean, it's not like they're.
No, it's working. John Gruden's just been this way. I mean, they've had Josh Jacobs for how many years? Josh Jacobs is a good running back.
No,
you can't argue that. You know what I mean? He's a very good running back. He's good.
Yeah.
He can even pass catch. He's a 3-down NFL running back. The problem is it's just for some reason John Gruden likes to use his running backs in specific roles and for certain things, maybe keep them fresh. I'm not sure, but it just seems weird that you would pay Kenyon Drake all this money and you lose Josh Jacobs and you give it to Peyton Barber. You know what I mean? Obviously, he played well, so I mean, it's not like we can fault him for that, but it just seems weird. Another guy for me was Emmanuel Sanders. I think it was only a matter of time as Bills fans. Ryan, I think you could notice it too. He was getting peppered in the Miami game. It just was that him and Josh Allen were a little bit off. This week, we saw it where they hit, and that chemistry finally kind of came together, and we saw him go for 2 touchdowns, 94 yards, all on 5 receptions. I mean, the Bills' offense is so explosive that I know we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, but like, I was surprised that it was Emmanuel Sanders. I think this is what we thought Gabe Davis was going to be this year. And Emmanuel Sanders was going to kind of be that 4th guy, more of a sure-handed guy. But it seems like Emmanuel Sanders is a big part of this offense, or at least a big part of the plan. And it doesn't look like the Bills are going to slow down. I mean, they were up 15 points, 20 points, and they were still just stepping back and chucking the ball against Washington. So, Ryan, I think this is going to be our perfect segue into waiver ads for week 4. And I know he's not your top one, but I'll let you start with it. because he's another one that I wrote an article over at Sports Gambling Podcast Network that I'm on too. I think that he's just as equal as your first waiver ad, just because I think Sanders is going to be involved a lot in this offense. And like we said, I've seen him get peppered for 3 weeks in a row. It just happened to be that finally there's some chemistry there starting and they're hitting those deep balls. Josh looks a little better than he has. So, Ryan, I will let you talk about your guy because I don't want to steal him, but
yeah. So obviously, like you said, he's my second priority. Emmanuel Sanders, only rostered in 38% on Sleeper and 32% on ESPN. Like you said, 5 catches, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Had a fantastic game. Currently 11th in the league in air yards, and of receivers with at least 10 catches, he leads the league in yards before reception, meaning he's getting a large amount of deep shots. He's getting a lot of shots downfield. And like we said, he's in an explosive offense, explosive passing game, throws the ball the 4th most per game so far this season. And Josh Allen seems to have good connection with him now that they've kind of shaking the cobwebs off a little bit. So if you're in need of some wide receiver upside, you can do a lot worse than Emmanuel Sanders if he's sitting out there, which he is in about 62% of leagues, roughly.
My article, Ryan, was kind of like a fab-based article. How much would you, percentage-wise, would you say you're targeting Sanders with? Like, I put him at like 20% on the basis that I'm not ready to like dump everything I got on him because there are other wide receiver options out there. And he is still kind of the 3rd wide receiver in the offense, but I still feel like 20 seems like a viable, like a good amount because he is definitely, obviously, you know what I mean? This was his ceiling. You know what I mean? You're not going to see him score probably more than 21, 22 points, more than 2 times in a game. But I do think that he has some viability. It's going to kind of be very up and down, though. So, like, are you in on him for more than, say, 20% if you're really desperate? Or are you kind of just like, I'm going to pass on him for now if I can't get him for anything under 20%?
I think given his age and injury history, I'm not willing to go much higher than that. I feel like if somebody bids me out for him, they just bid me out for him. Like I'm not really going to be terribly upset if I don't get him. But if I do get him and I need that wide receiver upside, then yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that, but like you said, I'm not willing to throw all my fab on him or anything like that. Like everybody threw all their fab at Elijah Mitchell, and look what happened. I literally said I would not throw my fab at Elijah Mitchell, and he got hurt. And granted, the season's not over. He's probably going to play this week, but so I could still be proven wrong on why I didn't do that. But yeah, for a guy like Sanders, given his age, and Gabe Davis is still there. There's still a viable chance that Gabe Davis improves throughout the year and takes him over for that spot, regardless of how well he continues to play. So I'm not willing to go much higher than 20%. I feel like you're kind of spot on with that. And if I get outbid, I get outbid for him.
Fair enough. I agree. That's kind of where I was at too. I'm going to keep it going with another bill. We'll just kind of keep this segue going here.
Yep.
And I think this is another guy that you should kind of be in on, especially with the tight end landscape. Dawson Knox. I mean, I think it's finally coming. He's always kind of struggled with drops, and it seems like he took care of that. He had one beautiful catch for a touchdown this weekend. But Dawson Knox has always been targeted in this offense. It's not like a ton of targets. I think he sees about 4 to 5, if that. But he definitely does get targets, and especially in the red zone. It's a team that doesn't necessarily run the ball all that much, and they're trying to protect Josh. So Dawson Knox is a viable option. I feel like he's right now tight end 6/7, depending on your league formats. And I'm just in on Dawson Knox this week. I think that he should be added. He's definitely a tight end 1. For the landscape, that tight ends are very terrible this year. You know what I mean, Ryan? Like,
yep.
I had Jonnu Smith everywhere. I have a lot of Adam Troutman. All these guys are just blanking it. And Dawson Knox has now had 2 weeks in a row with with a touchdown in each week and 4 to 5 receptions. I mean, he's very viable for fantasy football, especially at the tight end position. That's dicey. So I'm all in on adding Dawson Knox. He's not a player that I'm like dumping a ton of fab on. Or if I have a really high waiver priority, I might skip it just to save that for somebody else. But if you definitely need a tight end, this is where I'm going. I just think the viability and the explosiveness of the Bills' offense makes it too hard to avoid Dawson Knox.
Yeah, I do like Dawson. I mean, as a Bills fan, I've always kind of liked how his style of play, and he does always seem to be involved somewhat in the game plan. Like they always have something for him on a week-to-week basis. But if you have it pulled up, what are his season-long stats right now through 3 weeks?
I don't have it pulled up, but I could
pull it up real quick because I'm trying to
I think he only has 120 something yards, 2 touchdowns,
and
like that.
And he's a tight end 6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
oh no, that doesn't give me the season. Please hold. 10 receptions, 12 targets, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he's a tight end 6 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that just goes to show like how barren the tight end landscape is. So I'm bored with you with that. If you need the tight end help, or if you have a guy like Adam Trautman who hasn't done anything as your second tight end in a 2 tight end league or something like that, yeah, I mean I'm all for doing that. I'm sure Dawson Knox is probably picked up in 2 tight end leagues, but especially if you're like a tight end premium league or something like that, that's something that I'm completely on board with. I mean, explosive offense, he's still gonna, as long as you're getting 5 to 6 targets in that offense, you're going to be viable per game. So I'm completely on board with them.
Yeah, and I mean he's tight end 8 in PPR, tight end 6 in standard. So I mean it depends on what league format you're playing in. But either way, I mean the guys that are, I mean he's ahead of Mark Andrews, Noah Fant, Gesicki, Goddard, Kyle Pitts, all these guys that we thought were going to be much better. Ryan, we got a question here from Phil. Discuss Peyton Barber if you could. We kind of already touched on him a little bit, but I mean I'm a little bit more in on Peyton Barber, especially if you're deep in a need for running back, but he's a spot start at the moment. Basically you're looking at what if Josh Jacobs is back, he's probably useless to you. So it's a hard get this week because I'm not ready to like dump a ton of fab on it or waiver priority just because I don't know. Josh Jacobs is questionable. He could be back this week and he could miss this week. If not, I'm sure he'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't know if you agree with me, Ryan, but I feel like Peyton Barber is just kind of like a 1 week start if you're lucky next week. I just don't. I mean, unless you want to get him because of what Josh Jacobs is he's had a lot of injuries this season. So I mean, he could be a down the road start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just don't know what he's going to go for. You know, like I believe in the article that I wrote. I think I mentioned him in it. I'll check if you want to talk on Peyton a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if Josh Jacobs comes back this week against the Chargers, he's pretty much worthless. I don't think he's worth even a flex start at that point. But even if Josh Jacobs is active, I don't feel like that's going to be a positive game script for them. I feel like that's going to be more of a shootout game where they don't necessarily lean on him as much. I know they were into overtime.
The Chargers are actually pretty bad against running backs, though. I mean,
they are, but in order to keep up with that offense the way that's rolling right now, that's going to be hard to just constantly keep the ball in his hands. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if – I mean, I'd probably start him if I needed to. I'd probably be comfortable with doing that. But if I don't absolutely need to start him, I'm probably going to bench him against the Chargers in a game. Like I said, they're probably going to need to throw a ton to keep up with them.
Yeah.
But if Jacobs is back, then yeah, he's pretty much useless.
Yeah. In the article over at Sports Gambling Podcast Network, I put like 2% in fab just because I'm sure you'd be outbid at 2%. But the struggle is like we're saying, I mean, in 1 week he could be completely useless.
I would probably go like 5 just because with the way the running back injuries are starting to pile up. I mean, the more depth you have at the running back position is obviously better, especially at this point in the season already with the way it's going. So I'd say probably like 5% for me personally, but that's just because of the way the landscape is going. I mean, if John Jacobs were to miss extended period of time, then he's worth the 5% of your fab.
Yeah, I could see that. He also asked quick, is it time to cut ties with the following: Diami Brown, Ty Johnson, and Paris Campbell? I would say probably yes to Campbell and Ty Johnson in redraft.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a shallow roster, like if you have a very small roster size. Dyami Brown, I'm a little still in on. I still think he's kind of the wide receiver 2 there and kind of matchup dependent, but he could see some sneaky weeks where he might be pretty good, especially because he has a pretty good rapport with Heineke. So, I mean, definitely in Dynasty, I'm holding Dyami, Ty, and Paris Campbell just because usually the roster size is a little bigger, unless there's somebody on the waiver wire that's like way better. But yeah, I mean, in redraft, I'm probably ready to cut ties with these guys. But Dynasty, I'd probably hold them. I don't know about you, Ryan.
Yeah, in redraft, all three I'm probably cutting ties with. Dyami is going to have, I believe Curtis Samuel's ready to come back here in short order. And they're already not really involving him all that much, even with Curtis Samuel out. And Curtis Samuel is their big free agent acquisition. So, and I feel like they are going to get Antonio Gibson more involved in that offense. So I'm willing to cut ties with him in redraft. Ty Johnson, he might be the only guy that I'm willing to hold on to if I can, just because that backfield is a mess. And if Michael Carter goes down or anything like that, he might lead that team in carries, even though they're not going to have a lot of positive game scripts the way it's looking anyways. And Paris Campbell, I'm just kind of out on him at this point. He hasn't really done anything to impress me or show that he's worth keeping on your roster. So that's just kind of where I'm at with those three.
Yeah, I feel like especially once T.Y. Hilton, who's going to come back in a couple weeks, I think, by the looks of it, is back. I feel like Paris Campbell's really – I think it's the offense right now, just kind of meh in Indianapolis. So
and Michael Pittman's dominating targets.
It's
Taylor, Naeem Hines.
And even running backs and tight ends are even getting more targets. So he also has a quick one, absolute best lows at the moment. If you're talking redraft, I'm trying to go, honestly, check your waiver wire. Rashad Bateman might be out there. He's a big guy I'm pushing for. I think that once he comes back, we saw what Marquise Brown could do in that offense. Bateman's a very, very, very good wide receiver who could definitely take that over. But as far as trades go, I mean, I like A.J. Brown. I know it's not like super low, but there might be a dip. You might want to feel out the owner and see, just because he is week to week. I'd honestly even acquire CMC if they're low on him. If they feel like they want to grab a different running back, maybe you could send somebody over or something along those lines. Those are a couple like the bigger names, just because I feel like when CMC comes back, he still was basically the RB1 for most of those weeks that he was still playing this season. So I don't know about you, Ryan, if there's anybody else that you're kind of thinking that's maybe not as big of a name. I mean, Antonio Gibson, but I mean, he just had a big week, so it's kind of tough.
The guy that came to mind as soon as I saw the question was Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, that's another probably good one.
But he's a bigger name, and you said a lower name, but he was the first guy that popped in my head. I mean, this is a guy that we thought could be the wide receiver 1 this year, given Julio leaving and just that offense that he was expected to be in. That offense just hasn't really been the same yet, but he's still seen 18 targets through the first 2 games and a touchdown. And then week 3, he saw 11 more targets for 61 yards. He just hasn't caught another touchdown yet. But you look at their upcoming schedule, they face Washington, the Jets, and the Dolphins, which none of those teams really scare you in terms of their secondary. Dolphins probably have the best secondary of that group with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, but they still haven't really performed up to par so far for what they're usually capable of. So he's a guy that you might be able to get for less than wide receiver 1 value that could still finish as a wide receiver 1 in PPR leagues.
I like it. Kellen has DK and CD for Deontay. Yeah, thanks. Struggling with names here. I personally am going to hold DK and CD. I know Devontae Adams is like the guy, but depending on maybe league size, but I think CD is going to be fine, and I think DK is going to be fine. It's just kind of a weird year for fantasy so far. Don't panic. I think CD and DK could definitely help you a lot better as a duo on your roster than Devontae Adams, depending on who else is on your running backs. But should drop Michael Carter or Sony in PPR. I'm probably gonna say, I don't know who you're adding, but of these two, yeah, I'm probably gonna drop Sony just because Darrell Henderson, I believe, should be back, and Michael Carter looks to be the lead there in New York. I know it's not fancy and great looking at the moment, but I feel like he could carve out some nice weeks.
I think that gets better.
Yeah, he also has Godwin and Kenny G, and give up DJ Moore.
Ooh.
I like
Godwin, so that's tough.
Yeah, I like Godwin a lot. And I'm not so big on Kenny G or DJ Moore.
How can you not be big on Moore?
Just doesn't score enough touchdowns for me.
Get out of here.
And he's a wide receiver too. I mean, it's not like he's bad. He's never going to be a wide receiver one. He can't score the touchdowns to do it. I don't know. I'd probably hold Godwin. I just like Godwin so much better.
He's giving up more.
Yeah, I feel like you're giving up. Oh, and give up DJ Moore. Yeah. Yeah, I'd do it. Screw it. I read that wrong. Yeah, I wanted the Godwin side, so whichever side that is.
If you need the wide receiver depth, yes, I would do it.
I just think Godwin's better than DJ Moore, so I think you win. You just get a free Kenny G. That's my personal opinion, but we can agree to disagree, Ryan, because I know we won't.
It's close.
Dak and Diggs for Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, and Antonio Gibson. My other receivers are Cooper, Lockett, and I have Claypool and T. Higgins on the bench.
Trade Dak.
I'm trying to trade for CMC as well. Would try Hilton, T. Higgins, and CEH for CMC. My other backs are Cook and Edmonds. I mean, depending on who your quarterback is. Oh, he has Dak. So you're getting rid of Dak and Diggs. So you're technically upgrading most likely because Dak has been looked good, but he's. I don't know if he's ahead of Josh Allen right now. Is he overall?
No, I don't think so. If he is, it's not by much. I mean, Allen's got.
If this is dynasty, I'm completely in. I think. Sure. I love Stephon Diggs, and I think that he's going to get peppered with targets, and he's just kind of like in a lull at the moment. But in Dynasty, the outlook of Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, and Antonio Gibson is way better than Dak Prescott and Stephon Diggs long term. So I'm definitely in on that trade if it's Dynasty. If we're talking redraft, makes it a little harder, but with the way that the running back situation looks and you having Delvin Cook, Chase Edmonds, and CEH, I would probably do it. I don't think you're losing too much. Jamar Chase has definitely looked better than what we thought. So I don't know about you, Ryan.
Looks like going back to his DJ Moore Godwin trade, he also has Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, A-Rob, and Waddle. So he can only start 3. Ooh.
See, I just really like Godwin more than DJ Moore, but I get DJ Moore's probably like a.
But then
DJ Moore's probably safer because he's a safer play because he's the guy in Carolina. Where Godwin, you're battling with Gronkowski and Evans and blah blah blah. But
that's one of those things where he might have too much of a good thing. Like if he gets Godwin and Kenny Galladay, if Kenny G gets it together with Daniel Jones, he might just have an issue where he doesn't know which wide receiver to start from week to week. You know what I mean? Like he might run into that issue where you don't really know where to go. And right now you don't have that big of an issue. But that's why I like DJ Moore so much because he's the guy. He's the one he's the only guy seeing double-digit targets, especially with CMC out. He's probably gonna see even more. So with those I'm probably keeping DJ.
Yeah, I could say I wouldn't fault you for keeping him. I just really like Godwin. So, I feel like I'd fall in the trap there. I don't even say it's a trap. I think the trade's a fair trade. I think it just comes down to
Who you prefer?
Yeah, who you prefer? Do you prefer Godwin or do you prefer DJ Moore? I think it's pretty safe. If you really wanted to do it, if you don't, I mean, DJ Moore's definitely a safer route to targets because he is the guy. Where Godwin's kind of battling more people, but
that almost feel like one of those trades where you just hit accept just to trade.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like.
I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. It's just I feel like I'm just gonna hit accept just so I can make a trade with somebody.
Right. And thanks. I like the Williams jersey a lot too. You should like Javonte Williams too because he's gonna be a stud. Give him time. Trust me.
He will be. I like it.
But yeah, Jacob also said he's trying to trade for CMC as well. Would try Hilton, T. Higgins, and CEH for CMC. My other backs are Cook and Edmonds. I honestly don't hate this, even in redraft, especially if you make the other trade to get the depth with Jamar Chase and Antonio Gibson. I like buying CMC if he will sell him. I don't know if Hilton, Higgins, and CEH might get it, especially with CEH coming off a big week. But yeah, I like it trying to get CMC. I think he might come back and be a terror. So
I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those guys that looks at I don't know if other people do this, which they should, but I look at my opponents, like my trading partner's roster for situations like this. Like if I know that you're trying to get CMC for a lower price because he's hurt right now, and you're going to have CMC and Cook for the playoffs, I'm probably going to say no. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, like, if he's a CMC owner, knowing that he's going to have a team that's stacked, making the trade to a team,
I'm probably going to say no, unless it's like a big haul that I'm getting for it. I'm probably going to say no as a CMC owner, just because I don't want to have to see somebody in the playoffs with CMC and Cook in their starting lineup.
Yeah, that'd be scary. I saw a team with Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, and Diggs in my championship last year. Let's just say it didn't go well.
It's not fun.
Terrace Marshall becoming a large part of the offense soon. Unfortunately, yes and no. I think it's just the DJ Moore show. I just don't think – I think he already is a large part. I think, like, what you're seeing is – because I just think that you're seeing it already. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I see much more of a ceiling for Terrace Marshall at the moment. I feel like it's the DJ Moore show. No, I really don't. I just think that you're going to see Chubba Hubbard. I think you'll see Royce Freeman. I don't think they're all of a sudden going to trust Sam Darnold and drop back and throw it 50 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to see that. So I just feel like you're going to see a little bit more of Chubba Hubbard unless they can't run the ball. You know what I mean? If that could be a possibility. Chubba Hubbard and Royce Freeman can't get the job done, then maybe. But I just see like Terrace Marshall's going to be a hard start every week. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's involved. I think he had 8 or 9 points this week in PPR leagues, but like I just don't see him getting to ever, like, unless he's scoring a touchdown, he's not going to get to double digits. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and it's hard to predict the touchdowns.
Yeah, the thing is that he I don't know. He's gotten a little bit more involved just overall from week to week. It's just a matter of – I think it's a matter of game script for him. Like, if he's in a positive matchup, you might be able to trust starting him. Like, next week they play Dallas at Dallas. That game might turn into a shootout, and he might see some work there. But then again, DJ Moore could see 20 targets in that game. So that's just one of those things where you're right. It is tough to start him, and the upside is just not really there right now.
Yeah. And as far as T.Y. Hilton goes, I'd probably hold. Just that offense right now scares me. Like, Michael Pittman had one good week, and then after that, it's kind of just been meh. They're definitely going to be like a matchup dependent starts. I feel like none of those guys are going to be startable every week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could go out and you can start like T. Higgins. You can start all these guys that, okay, the matchup's not great, but they're still going to get me points. With the Colts, it's just kind of like it has to be a good matchup. Unless you're Nyheim Hines, who just seems to just get PPR points every single week, no matter what.
That's because he's filtered into the game plan regardless. Because if you play a team with a good pass rush, what do? You dump off the running backs. You're trailing from behind, and you need some quick, easy yards. What do? Dump off to the running backs, let them run for a little bit. It's just he's just constantly schemed into the game plan. So I don't know. Ty is one of those guys that could potentially have a super high ceiling. Like he's a guy that could get you 20 points in a week, but he's another guy like we've talked about before that I want to see it from him first, especially at his age in that offense where they're at currently right now. Like you said, it's not very encouraging. So I would need to see it, but then it's probably too late. So I probably wouldn't be adding him.
Yeah, I mean, like he's not expected to come off for this week, so you probably have a week or two still before you could get him for free off a waiver wire.
I would rather add Rashad Bateman right now than add Ty.
Yeah. I'd add Bateman, give him a couple weeks, see if it works, and then add Ty the week before he's supposed to come back.
I mean, with Marquise Brown kept dropping everything last week, I mean, they're probably praying.
Don't even get me started. He should have like 40 points.
That game should have been long over. Lamar Jackson should have got me 500 points. I feel bad for Lamar Jackson. That game was brutal.
Yeah. And you're welcome, Phil. All right, Ryan, real quick, let's run through this. I'll run through mine just because with the questions, which we're glad to help, I just don't want to run too long here. But like we'd mentioned, Rashad Bateman is a guy that I really want to target off the waiver wire. Giovanni Bernard is another guy that if he's available in a decent amount of leagues, I'm looking to add Giovanni Bernard. He was definitely heavily involved in the Tampa Bay offense, especially with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette kind of just being iffy guys, according to Bruce Arians. So I'm definitely looking to add him, possibly 5% fab, nothing crazy. And then Christian Kirk is a guy I really like. I mean, like 10, 15% of your fab. He's had 3 decent weeks now, 2 double-digit weeks. And he's obviously heavily involved in this offense. The move to the slot obviously helped him. So he's been a roster clogger for a while. I just think that at the moment, he seems like he's a flex startable guy, especially in deeper leagues, like a 3 wide receiver league or a 3 flex league. So, I mean, on those guys, Ryan, you can hit the good ones that I'm also in on all of Ryan's. So, in case anybody's wondering. Yeah,
obviously, number one's got to be Tuba Hubbard. 43% redraft league on Sleeper, 70% on ESPN leagues. He's gonna be the next man up. I know Royce Freeman got a little bit of run. I don't know if anybody's really concerned about him giving his history, but Hubbard saw 16 opportunities, 79 total yards, 4.7 yards per carry. Schedule isn't crazy difficult. Start in terms of defenses they face. Dallas, Philly, and Minnesota. If CMC were to miss the third week, they're all bottom 10 in one category, another when it comes to running backs. So he's always going to be a popular ad. So if you can afford to get him and need the running back help, at least for the next few weeks, you should be adding him. I'm not going to throw more than like 30 or 40% of my fab on him because it's only going to be a couple week rental, basically. I don't think he's going to be there at the end of the year. Hopefully CMC can stay healthy. Fantasy is just better when a guy like him is active and playing. So I hope that he's able to stay healthy. We already touched on Emmanuel Sanders. And then my third guy is Hunter Renfrow. May be the preferred target for some in PPR leagues, but I still prefer Emmanuel Sanders just because he has the big play touchdown upside. But I wouldn't play you for Renfrow instead. Vegas throws second most pass attempts per game through 3 weeks. Derek Carr looks great. And Renfro's had at least 5 catches and double-digit PPR points in all 3 games. He's caught 16 to 17 catchable balls so far, currently on pace for 91 receptions. So again, if you're in need of wide receiver depth, especially in a deeper league, and you feel more comfortable adding him over Sanders, I would completely understand that. But Sanders is getting my priority, so I talked about him first.
I like it. I agree. I like Renfrow, especially as a spot starter right now. I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know if the Raiders passing game is sustainable. But right now, it is on fire, and I am all in on adding Renfrow. Another guy that I'm not dumping a ton of fab on, but I can totally get behind you there. And I like Chubba Hubbard. I think that I liked Chubba Hubbard. I thought that he's somewhatly raw. He seems a little slower for some reason in the NFL than he did in college. Just in general. Like, I know that the game speed's faster in the NFL, but he just seems like he lost a step. I don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe I know he bulked up, so I feel like he kind of lost a little bit of the speed that he had from that 2,000-yard season. But I do like him. Like you said, Ryan, I'm not dumping a ton of fab because he is a spot start guy. So, but I think he's a good spot start right now. Luckily, if you play Dynasty, maybe you roster him in a couple spots and you're getting that extra help there at running back. But yeah, I like it. Definitely guys that should be targeting. So
if he's going to see 17 opportunities a game,
he's startable.
Yeah.
Real quick, we'll end the show with this question. Superflex League, I traded away Carr and J-Rob and got Taylor and Slayton. My quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes, I'm guessing, Herbert, and Taylor Heineke. I like it. Jonathan Taylor probably is actually a good buy low for Phil. Sorry, we missed him. Taylor just isn't really performing up to everybody's expectations right now as far as points go, as far as fantasy. So I don't mind it. I think Derek Carr is having a great year. I think he's going to slow down. I don't think he finishes at QB1. If he does, it's going to be low end. Just because I can't trust the Raiders to keep up this passing volume, especially like once Josh Jacobs is back and healthy. I expect it to be a little bit more run heavy. But I like the trade. I don't know about you, Ryan. I think getting Jonathan Taylor, Darius Slayton, I'm not like crazy about, but I think getting Jonathan Taylor for that price seems pretty cheap to me.
Yeah, and Superflex, it's a little bit tougher because Derek Carr's playing so well right now. I guess it would just kind of, you obviously have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert you're starting him and you're not really thinking about it outside of maybe if Herbert played the Rams or somebody like that, but even then you're probably still starting him anyways.
Yeah, his ceiling's too high to never not start.
Yeah, so I'm perfectly fine with that because of the depth that you have at quarterback there. Heineke, I think as long as he's a starter there, I think he's a perfectly fine bye week fill-in, injury fill-in type quarterback.
Yeah, he put up a good fantasy game against the Bills. I think he scored over 20 points. So
yeah, he did. And J-Rob, I'm still not. I know he got the workload last week, and very encouraging to see that, but we're still not 100% sure how this offense is going to look throughout the year. I feel like Taylor, we've already seen he's getting the opportunities. He's just not really performing all that well, and I don't expect Naheem Hines to outsnap him again going forward. So I'm perfectly fine with it. JT was a RB6 in ADP in some platforms this year, so I'm perfectly fine with that, especially with the quarterback depth. So I'm cool with it. I know some people probably aren't because it's a quarterback in a super flex league, but with that two you have starting, it's not really, you don't really have to think twice about it.
Yeah. And I feel like super flex sometimes is hard to trade, especially if it's like a league with your friends and stuff like that. People don't understand the value of quarterbacks. So like it gets a little hard sometimes. Like I know I'm in a league that like I couldn't get last year. I was trying to trade Kirk Cousins to a contending team and like I couldn't even get a second round pick. And it's kind of like, yeah, he's a starting quarterback though in a super flex league, so sometimes the value just isn't really there. So
that just goes to show the wrongfully bad stigma that Kirk Cousins has in fantasy.
Yeah, and now I have a team that's starting Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins, so I'm happy with it right now. So, but
Absolutely.
And I have Trevor Lawrence on the bench, ripening for hopefully ripening, and I traded Justin Fields for Ezekiel Elliott earlier in the offseason and a first-round pick. So that looks all right because Matt Nagy just can't coach quarterbacks. So leave that for a different day. Ryan, as we sign off, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and what you have coming out if you have anything coming out soon?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. I've been doing these really cool, just kind of like trivial type things on Twitter. People have been interacting with them quite often, and I really enjoy that. So I'm gonna try to keep doing that type of stuff. It keeps people kind of engaged, and it's just kind of cool doing the research for things like that. So if you're interested in things like that, feel free to follow me and just kind of keep an eye out. I have one going right now. So if you want to do that, DMs are always open on any sort of questions like this. If we Phil, everybody else that was in the show, really appreciate you guys coming on and interacting with us through YouTube. So please feel free to stop by anytime. I'm sure Jeremy will say the same about his DMs. But you can find some of my work on FF League Winners, yards per as well. And hopefully you guys enjoy the show and give you guys some good advice. Jeremy, you're up.
Yeah, and you can find any of my writing, Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and Yards Per. Like I said, I have a waiver wire article out right now at Sports Gambling Podcast. It's pinned on my Twitter feed at PopesFFH. Like Ryan said, DMs are always open, and we have a start-sit show on Sunday mornings from about 9:30 a.m. till kickoff-ish, maybe 12 sometimes, depends on the day. And unfortunately, like Ryan kind of mentioned, Twitter kind of does not allow comments to be sent to StreamYard at the moment. So we are kind of shifting everything to YouTube. So if you do have questions for that, definitely go through YouTube and or comment on the post on Twitter, because I will be able to see that and we can answer it that way. We just can't pop it up on the screen. And before, would you sell Barkley now? Probably not. I'm a big Saquon Barkley believer. I think he's worth holding. And who do you start at running back? Carter, Javonte Williams, or J-Rob PPR this week? I'm probably going Williams and J-Rob. I don't remember exactly who Michael Carter has, but I don't think they have a crazy good matchup.
Titans.
Yeah, I'd probably start Javonte and J-Rob. I feel like J-Rob's going to get used pretty decent on Thursday night.
Yeah, they get a Thursday night game. That's usually a running back style game, so I'd be cool with J-Rob. And I'm gonna start Javonte until he pops off for real. Like until he like goes bonkers, I'm gonna just keep starting him. And then I'm just gonna say I told you so. I'm just gonna keep starting.
It's slowly coming. He got his touchdown last week, so
I did call that on Sunday.
Yeah, you did. All right. Till next week, guys, or Sunday.